You've probably seen the pictures, right? Working from a laptop, sun shining, overlooking a beautiful coast in southern Europe. For years, countries like Portugal, Greece, and Italy have been rolling out the red carpet for foreigners with what looks like a golden ticket to this dream life. But here's the crazy part, the paradox. The very policies designed to bring people in are sparking a housing crisis that's pushing everyone out, locals and even the newcomers themselves. So how did the dream go so wrong?
You know, this isn't just about a few cities getting too expensive. This is a story about a huge shift in how we even think about housing. I mean, what is a home? Is it a basic human right, a place to build a life? Or is it just another asset on the global market like gold or stocks? That question, that's really at the heart of the crisis that's blowing up across some of the most beautiful places on Earth.
To really get how this works, let's look at the perfect example, the Digital Nomad Visa. Back in 2022, Portugal launched its D8 visa, and, the remote work community just went absolutely nuts for it. The promise was so seductive. Bring your job, bring your income, and come live the good life in the sun.
And on paper, the deal looked incredible. All you had to do was earn about 4 times the local minimum wage, prove you had a little safety net in the bank, and boom, you were on your way. It was a massive signal to the world that said, Portugal wants you. And believe me, thousands of people answered that call.
But that initial excitement, it faded, and it faded fast. The reality on the ground showed a system that was fantastic at selling the dream, but just awful at managing the consequences. It was kind of like pouring water into a leaky bucket. A huge flood of people were interested, but there was no real structure to keep them from flowing right back out.
And what's so fascinating here is who this criticism is coming from. Gonzalo Hall wasn't some random observer. He was one of the key people who helped build Portugal's remote work movement in the first place. He says the government got obsessed with vanity metrics, good headlines, big application numbers, and totally forgot to think about what actually happens after people show up.
And for the nomads who actually made the move, that dream turned into a total bureaucratic nightmare. I mean, can you imagine moving your whole life to a new country only to be stuck in legal limbo for over a year just waiting on a permit? Then, the amazing tax break that got you there in the first place, suddenly canceled. And the craziest part? A visa for nomads, people who by definition are mobile, forced them to stay put for most of their first 2 years. It was just one broken promise after another.
This slide really just lays out that leaky bucket problem perfectly. Portugal put all its energy into marketing. Meanwhile, a program in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they invested in a whole support system, community events, help getting settled, the works. And the result? An incredible 74% of the people who went there stayed for the long haul. Portugal? They didn't even bother to track how many people gave up and left.
So all these high-earning foreigners moving in, plus some other policies, had a completely devastating effect on the local housing market. In Lisbon, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is now over 1,500 euros a month. The local minimum wage, just 920 euros. You don't have to be an economist to realize that math is an absolute catastrophe for anyone trying to live and work there.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second, because what happened in Portugal, it's not some isolated mistake. It's a symptom of a much deeper force that's reshaping cities all across southern Europe. The digital nomad visa was just one small gear in a much, much bigger financial machine.
So is this all the nomads' fault? No, absolutely not. While they became a super convenient scapegoat for rising rents, they're really just one tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. You got golden visas for real estate investors, the explosion of short-term rentals. It's all part of a system of policies that have consistently put foreign money ahead of local housing needs.
At the core of all this is a concept called housing financialization. Now, I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea is actually really simple. It's this shift where a home stops being primarily a place to live and becomes an asset to be bought and sold for maximum profit on the global market.
Portugal's whole nomad situation was a clear warning sign. But to see just how deep this financialization problem really goes, we need to turn to Greece. For big international investors, the Greek housing market is sold as a golden opportunity. But for the people who actually live there, it's become a full-blown crisis, making a basic home completely out of reach.
And the numbers, well, they really tell the story. In just about a decade, home ownership in Greece has fallen off a cliff, especially for young people. More and more people are being pushed into a rental market with basically no rules, where prices are just exploding. It's creating this huge gap between the wealthy who own property and, well, pretty much everyone else.
And this is the result. 84.5%. That's the percentage of the poor population in Greece that is officially overburdened by housing costs. That means they're spending over 40% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. It is the highest rate in all of Europe. Just staggering.
So how did this happen? Well, according to a major report from the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, this crisis is no accident. It's being driven by three main forces that all feed each other. First, you have policies like golden visas that are designed to attract foreign money to buy up property. Second, you have private debt management, where banks and so-called vulture funds swoop in and take over homes from people who can't keep up with payments. And third, all that property gets funneled into a new corporate rental market that's aimed at tourists and executives, not local families.
So you might be asking yourself, wait a minute, with billions of euros in recovery funds out there, why aren't governments fixing this? Well, the tragic irony is that a lot of the official solutions are actually making the problem even worse.
The report argues that most of the proposed fixes, things like public-private partnerships, are pretty much doomed from the start. Why? Because they're based on the exact same market-driven thinking that caused the crisis in the first place. They're trying to solve a problem of financialization by throwing more money at the market. It's literally like trying to put out a fire with gasoline.
And you can see this same flawed playbook being used all across the region. In Greece, Portugal, and Italy, their affordable housing programs often mean giving public land or public money to private developers. But without any strong rules to limit profits, these programs just end up subsidizing the very market that's pushing people out. The solution is actually fueling the fire.
But listen, it doesn't have to be this way. There is an alternative vision, a different path forward, and it's one that completely reframes the whole purpose of housing policy.
The alternative is to just stop treating housing like a commodity and start treating it like a fundamental social right. This means shifting the entire goal of public policy. We have to move away from maximizing returns for investors and move towards making sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home.
So how do we do that? Well, the report proposes a really clear three-part strategy. First, you have to get control of the market, with things like rent caps and taxes on speculative buying. Second, you actively socialize housing. And that doesn't just mean building more government projects, it means supporting nonprofits and co-ops that take houses off the speculative market for good. And third, you have to build a system where housing decisions are made for the public good, not for private profit.
And this all brings us to a huge, fundamental question about the future of our cities. In this global race to attract money and talent, have we forgotten who cities are even for? Is it possible to have economic growth without sacrificing the ability for regular people to just live a decent life? Or have we built a system where a golden ticket for a lucky few means the door is slammed shut for everybody else? The choice we make is going to define our cities for generations to come.